Hey guys, tonight we begin with something primal, something raw, something cold, hairy, and constantly covered in either dirt, blood, or something even less pleasant. That's right, being a caveman, or cavewoman, or cave someone, because frankly, no one back then had time to argue semantics. You were too busy trying not to starve or get eaten. Now before we jump in, go ahead and dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that gentle white noise hum. Just get cozy. If you're enjoying these sleepy dives into the past, a like and subscribe helps more than you know, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. I always love seeing who's surviving the modern world with us. No mammoths involved. You're a caveman, or more precisely, you are a Homo sapiens, modern in your anatomy, but utterly prehistoric in everything else. Your home is a cave, which sounds cozy until you realise it smells like smoke, sweat, and something a wolf dragged in 2 days ago. Because it probably did. Your bed? A thrilling combination of dry grass, questionable fur, and what you hope are just bones from last night's dinner. Not your cousin Thog. Hopefully. You awaken in complete darkness. Not because it's still night, but because the fire went out. Again. You told someone to keep it going. That someone was probably your mate, who is now snoring so aggressively it echoes through the cave like a mammoth stuck in a mud pit. The cold hits you first. A deep, biting chill that lives in your bones. No blankets, just furs. And not the nice kind. They're stiff, itchy, and smell like damp death. One fur wraps around your feet. Another is bunched under your neck. Somewhere under the heap you feel movement. A foot. Small. Sticky. Possibly your child's. Possibly someone else's. Hard to tell in a cave that serves as bedroom, kitchen, nursery and low-budget zoo. You try to sit up. Your back protests. Something pops. You whisper a few choice grunts that translate roughly to ow. Ugh! And I regret everything. You're not alone, of course. The cave is crowded. There's your mate, still asleep, tangled in his favourite mammoth hide like a proud, lazy burrito. 2 children beside you, one chewing on a stick, the other attempting to lick a rock. In the distance, someone's baby is crying with the persistence of a prehistoric car alarm. It's not yours, you think. Then again, no one really did paternity tests in the Paleolithic. You grope around for your wrap, a woven garment of plant fibres and wool, held together by knots and prayers. It's under the baby, who is now diagonally sprawled across your only comfort item like a drunken squirrel. You lift them, barely. They grunt and keep sleeping. You retrieve your wrap, feeling like you've already conquered a beast before sunrise. Now comes the ritual of the morning crawl. You don't walk yet. First, you scan. Is the cave entrance clear? Is there a large, toothy animal sleeping where your fire pit should be? Has anyone wandered off in the night? Your brain is still foggy. You think of breakfast, which won't be cereal or toast. It'll be roots or berries, if you're lucky. If not, it's yesterday's soup, reheated on a fire that doesn't yet exist, or hasn't been completely peed on by your neighbour's kid. You stumble to the fire pit. Just a ring of scorched rocks and ash. A reminder that survival depends on something as fickle as flame. No matches, no lighters, not even flint, unless someone remembered to not drop it in the latrine ditch last night. You reach for 2 sticks, fire-making sticks. You name them pain and suffering, because that's what rubbing them together feels like. You squat, you groan, you start grinding the spindle against the base. Smoke, then more smoke, then nothing. Your hands ache, your knees pop. You curse the gods of heat and friction. Eventually the smallest spark. You blow gently. One of the children sneezes directly behind you, nearly extinguishing your progress. But you persist. You are fire god. You are the warmth bringer. You are seconds away from chucking the child into the pit out of spite. Finally it catches. A tiny flame. Glorious. Radiant. Pathetic. But it grows. You feed it twigs, then kindling, then a log, all while your mate mutters something heroic about hunting later. as if his biggest contribution to the tribe isn't just blocking the draft with his enormous backside. With fire comes light, and with light, the cave becomes real again. Rough stone walls, mossy corners, primitive drawings from last night, some meaningful, some suspiciously shaped like butts. You hear the others stirring, the communal groan of a species not meant for mornings. This is life. No alarms, no snooze buttons, just cold, noise, responsibility, and the knowledge that every day starts with fighting for the same things: warmth, food, and keeping your loved ones alive. And no, there's no coffee. Outside the world is grey. Mist curls over the rocks. You smell wet earth, distant pine, and something dead. Possibly breakfast. Possibly something that wants to make you breakfast. You gather your things, a satchel made from hide, a bone tool, a woven basket that's more whole than container. You prepare to forage, or hunt, or defend yourself from raccoons with vendettas, whatever today brings. Because being a caveman isn't a movie. It's not about flexing in furs or painting buffalo on walls in your free time. It's about constant motion, constant hunger, constant cold, and despite all that, constant love. For your family, your fire, your place in this strange, brutal world. You didn't have comfort, but you had meaning. And now the fire crackles, the children laugh, the sun begins to rise though you can't see it yet. The sky just gets a little less black. Time to survive the day. You'd think fire would be the easiest part of your life. After all, it just sits there, crackling, glowing, dancing in place like a tired spirit with nowhere else to be. But fire is not your friend. It is not loyal. It is not dependable. It is a diva. It demands constant attention, feeds only on the most specific things, and dies in dramatic silence the second you turn your back. And in your world, when the fire dies, everything dies. You crouch beside the flames you fought so hard to coax into existence just minutes ago. Your back is already sore, your eyes sting from smoke, and your fingers are dusted with ash and regret. The morning is still young, but the battle to keep your tiny inferno alive has begun. You feed it with sticks first. Thin, dry, brittle ones you scavenged and stashed yesterday, hidden behind a boulder so no one else in the cave would steal them for kindling. You've seen it happen. 1 minute your stash is safe, the next it's gone, and someone's using your prized tinder to light a celebratory smoke after burning a squirrel. You've never quite forgiven them. The fire hisses at the offering. You whisper threats. It crackles like it's considering your plea. You add a handful of dried grass and a few bark shavings. The flames spit, shrink, then surge. You exhale slowly, proud but cautious. Fire doesn't care about your feelings. It wants more. Always more. Behind you, the cave is stirring. You hear the groans of waking bodies and the shuffle of fur-wrapped feet. A child sneezes. Another one immediately screams in reaction, and your mate mumbles something profoundly unhelpful about how this cave could really use a skylight. You pretend not to hear. You're the fire keeper now. You don't have time for nonsense. Historically, fire was one of humanity's greatest turning points. Control of it meant warmth, protection, light, and the ability to cook meat instead of gnawing it raw like a lion with poor table manners. But here, in the dim recesses of your shared dwelling, it means you get no break. If the flame dies overnight, it's on you. If someone trips and scatters ashes all over the stew pot, guess who has to fix it? Not the hairy lump still snoring on the mammoth hide. You. You toss another stick onto the fire. It smokes aggressively and you cough. Smoke is not gentle. It snakes into your eyes and throat, makes your clothes reek, and curls around your hair like it's trying to flirt with you. You wave it away, eyes watering. The child closest to you announces dramatically that they can't see and are now blind. You grunt back something that translates to use your other senses. The fire grows. Slowly. It is the only thing in your world that you both fear and rely on. With it, you keep wolves at bay. Without it, you are meat in a sleeping bag. You squat next to it, rearranging the logs with a charred stick, nudging embers back into formation. You've learned that fire likes airflow, but not too much. Feed it too fast and it roars, then collapses. Starve it, and it sputters out like a toddler mid-tantrum. It's a delicate, smoky dance. You've done it hundreds of times. You'll do it hundreds more. Your mate stirs behind you. He rises, stretches with dramatic flair, and scratches his chest like he just invented mornings. You don't turn around. You already know he'll shuffle past the fire, grunt approvingly at your efforts, and then announce he's off to hunt, without so much as asking if you need help stoking the flames or preventing the children from setting themselves on fire with excitement. And sure enough, he does exactly that. Tosses a spear over his shoulder, adjusts his fur wrap, and says something vaguely heroic about mammoths and destiny. You grunt again. The fire flares for a second, as if mocking you. There's a myth people like to believe, that early humans just discovered fire, that they sat around basking in its glow, marvelling at their genius. But they don't mention the part where you have to watch it constantly, where a sudden gust of wind can undo 2 hours of sweat and swearing, where someone kicks a burning log because they're clumsy or 6 years old, and now the entire family is scrambling to not burn to death before breakfast. Fire isn't just warmth, it's control over chaos, and you are its reluctant manager. You build it higher now, stacking thicker wood, adjusting the rocks around the pit to funnel the heat outward. One rock collapses inward, spilling embers that nearly catch your wrap on fire. You stamp it out while a child laughs hysterically like you're part of a slapstick cave comedy act. You resist the urge to hurl a log in their direction, but eventually you get it. The fire stabilizes. You sit back on your heels and watch it dance, strong, steady, hot enough to keep the cave from feeling like a frozen tomb. For a moment, you feel a flicker of pride. Then the wind picks up, a breeze sneaking through the cave's entrance like a thief. It curls around your carefully built fire and snuffs the smallest flame. You leap forward, frantically shielding it with your body, whispering every prayer you know to ancient gods, ancestors, and possibly that weird lichen-covered rock that some people worship because it looks like a face. The fire holds. Barely. You rebuild again. And again. Because this is your role. Not glamorous, not exciting, but utterly essential. If the fire lives, so do you. If it doesn't, well, the hyenas are already howling in the distance, and you've heard they like slow meals. The day moves on, children gather round, poking the fire with sticks until you swat them away. You boil water in a crude bowl made of fired clay and animal fat. You cook whatever roots and scraps are available. You maintain the blaze while others leave to hunt, gather, gossip, or nap in creative positions, and still the fire needs you. A few coals shift wrong, and it threatens collapse. Rain clouds gather overhead. Better cover the entrance with furs. Someone tosses a damp log onto the pit. You glare at them until they apologise in grunts and silence. By midday, your hair smells like a burnt pine cone, your eyes are raw, and your fingers are blistered. You haven't even had time to eat. But the fire is still going, a stubborn, glowing reminder that even in a world where death lurks behind every tree, you can control something. Kind of. It's not glamorous. No one sings songs about the one who keeps the coals alive. But in your tribe, you are the invisible spine, the one who ensures that food is edible, that water is boiled, that warmth exists at all. The hunter might bring back meat. But without your flame, it's just cold flesh in a dying world. As dusk begins to creep in again and shadows stretch across the stone floor, you crouch low beside the fire once more. You adjust a log, stir the embers. The orange light reflects in your eyes. You've won today's battle. Tomorrow you'll do it all again. Because fire never sleeps, and neither, it seems, do you. The fire is finally stable. Your mate has left, off to chase mammoths or his own ego, whichever he finds first. The children are occupied, for now, drawing inappropriate stick figures on the cave wall with charcoal and a deeply concerning focus. and your body, stiff from the fire squat and sore from sleeping like a pretzel on a bed of straw, tells you it's time to feed yourself. Because the gnawing sensation in your gut has moved beyond polite rumbling and is now sending signals loud enough to be interpreted as ancient Morse code: eat or perish. But there is no pantry, no fridge humming in the background, no bag of stale granola bars tucked behind a rock. There's only the open world beyond the cave mouth, filled with thorns, teeth, and things that look edible, but have a 50-50 chance of sending you into a hallucinogenic fever dream, or giving your intestines a permanent grudge. This is foraging. The original grocery run, minus the aisles, carts, and existential dread in the checkout line. You step outside, greeted immediately by the smell of wet earth, the sting of cold air on your cheeks, and the light drizzle of what might be rain or the sky just crying out of spite. You've done this before, hundreds of times. But no two forages are ever the same. Some days you return with fistfuls of vibrant berries and roots so plump you'd swear they smiled at you. Other days you come back with a single limp leaf, a bruised mushroom, and several emotional wounds from being chased by a goose with abandonment issues. You wrap yourself in your fur cloak, patchy and stiff with old mud, and grab your digging stick, a long sharpened branch worn smooth by use, and countless hours of stabbing the dirt like it insulted your ancestors. This stick is your best friend out here, your grocery scanner, your weapon, your overworked, underpaid tool of survival. The forest is quiet today, not peaceful, just waiting. Every snap of a twig makes your shoulders tighten. Every rustle in the underbrush might be a rabbit, or a snake, or that one weird badger that keeps showing up in your dreams, holding a rock and making eye contact. You start by checking a nearby patch of wild garlic. If the deer haven't trampled it, you might get lucky. You crouch low, brushing aside damp leaves, and find nothing. Just soil, a suspicious snail, and the faint scent of disappointment. You grunt and move on, stepping carefully over moss-covered stones that always seem to want your ankle as tribute. Next is the root zone, where burdock, wild carrots, and other vaguely edible tubers might be hiding. You kneel, jab your stick into the ground, and start prying. It's muddy, sticky, the kind of wet soil that immediately clings to your hands like it's in love with you. You dig, grunt, pull, and finally extract something that resembles a root. It smells bitter, looks gnarled, and is covered in little white threads that might be helpful fibre or nature's warning sign. You shrug and toss it in your basket. If it doesn't kill you, it'll feed you. Probably. Nearby, a patch of berries catches your eye. Bright red, plump, and tempting. Which of course means they're probably poisonous. You stare at them, recalling the last time someone ate something similar. The results were vivid. He claimed to see the gods. The gods told him to dance. Then he danced straight into a tree, and then the tree won. Still, you pick a few, for later, for someone else to test. Further out, the land opens into a small glade. You keep low, moving through ferns and ducking under low-hanging branches. This is a good spot for mushrooms, or snakes. Possibly both. You reach a fallen log, lift it with your stick, and immediately jump back as a family of beetles scurries out like they were late for an appointment. You peer underneath. One cluster of fungi, brown, spongy, and shaped like a collapsed brain. Promising. You scrape some into a pouch, noting the slimy texture. Definitely soup material. Maybe. You take a break under a tree. The sun has finally risen high enough to be considered day. Not that it matters. The forest always feels dim, like it's keeping secrets. You chew on a piece of dried bark, part snack, part habit, part vague attempt at dental hygiene. It tastes like tree. Which makes sense. You spit out a splinter. Suddenly a rustle behind you. You freeze. Every muscle tightens. Your eyes dart. Could be a deer. Could be worse. You grip your stick tighter, slow your breathing, and turn slowly. It's a boar. Not a massive one, thank the stars, but big enough. It stares at you, snorting steam from its nose like an angry kettle with hooves. You don't move. Boars are unpredictable, stubborn, and very, very fast. It takes one step forward. You take one step back, another step, another retreat. Then it snorts again and decides you're not worth the trouble. It trots off, tail twitching with disdain. You breathe again. You continue. Foraging isn't about finding a feast. It's about gathering enough strange, earthy, hopefully non-lethal things to stretch into a meal. By the time you circle back toward the cave, your basket holds a few roots, a handful of greens, some pine nuts, a sprig of wild thyme, and a mushroom. You're 40% sure is not cursed. Your stomach is still empty. But the burden of returning with something, anything, is a kind of victory. You pause before re-entering the cave. You glance out across the land, wide, untamed, dangerous. There are no fences, no roads, no signs, just instinct and memory. You made it out and back without being eaten, stung, or hallucinating a conversation with a tree. That counts as a good forage. Inside the cave, the fire is still going. The kids are arguing over who owns the bigger stick. Your mate has not returned, presumably off losing a staring contest with a mammoth. You settle beside the fire, dump your haul into a stone bowl and start cleaning the roots with a sharp-edged rock. This is survival, not glamorous, not thrilling, but real and hard and yours. You toss a root onto the fire's edge, where it begins to char. Smoke curls upward, fragrant with damp earth and ash. The child closest to you sniffs the air and makes a face like you've just served him fermented foot. You remind him gently but firmly that if he wants mammoth steak, he should go chase one himself. The root crackles. You bite into it. It's bitter, tough, slightly crunchy in a way that says still dirty, but it's food, and it won't kill you today. That's enough. There comes a moment, usually after you've rolled in dirt for the 6th time this week, or after a particularly messy encounter with fermented meat, when even you admit it's time to wash. You, a caveman, a creature of soot and sinew, whose idea of grooming usually involves flicking ticks off your shin with a sharpened stick, finally accept the truth. You smell like history, and not the good kind. So, with a reluctant sigh and a groan from your overworked knees, you rise from your spot by the fire, set down your half-eaten bark and bitterroot breakfast, and prepare for that ancient ritual of personal maintenance. Bathing, or at least your version of it, which involves walking into a freezing river while hoping nothing with teeth decides you look like lunch. You step out into the grey morning light, your bare feet pressing into soft mud that squishes between your toes, like nature's way of reminding you that nothing in this world is ever dry. You carry nothing but your washing tool, a handful of fibrous moss and maybe a flat rock, depending on how committed you feel to exfoliation. The river lies just beyond the tree line, humming quietly like a predator that's learned patience. The path to it is well worn, trampled grass, scattered footprints, and occasional streaks of something you choose not to investigate too closely. This is where the tribe bathes, fills water skins, and occasionally argues loudly over who left animal guts upstream. It's not exactly private, but then again, privacy isn't a concept that thrives when you sleep 4 to a fur and have to share a fire with people who chew rocks for fun. The closer you get, the colder the air feels. You smell damp moss, hear the croak of frogs, the flutter of startled birds, and the ever-present buzz of flies that swarm like indecisive gossip. The water glints dully under the weak sun. It is not inviting. It does not sparkle. It looks like melted slate, and it will hurt. You reach the edge and crouch. Your toes dip in first. The shock is immediate, sharp. It bites. Your body recoils. Your mind swears. You steel yourself. Bathing in the Paleolithic isn't about comfort. It's not about relaxation or eucalyptus-scented oils. It's about not dying of infection. It's about scrubbing away layers of grime before they become ecosystems. And yes, maybe, just maybe, it's about not being the one in the cave who smells like regret. You strip off your fur wrap, carefully because it's stiff in places and somehow always manages to snag on something embarrassing, and step into the river. One foot, then the other, then a very undignified gasp as the cold races up your thighs and convinces your spine to question all of your life decisions. You're now awake, completely, uncomfortably. You sink lower, teeth clenching, breath short. The current pulls at your legs, not strong enough to drag you under, but insistent, like it's curious about your shins. You begin washing, first your arms, coated in dust, soot, and what might be mammoth grease, then your chest, where dried sweat has formed a protective crust of unpleasantness. You scrub it off with moss, which smells faintly of pond and regret. Then you work down, carefully, methodically, because some parts of you are delicate and the water doesn't care. You duck your head under. The sound changes instantly. The world muffles. You hear your own heart beating, feel your scalp sting, your hair clinging like wet straw. You surface with a sputter, blinking river water from your eyes, breathing hard. You stand still for a moment, arms crossed, body shivering, feeling both cleaner and more vulnerable than usual. This is the price of civilization, such as it is. A noise behind you, a splash. You spin, eyes wide. It's not a predator. It's a child, charging into the water with the confidence only youth and ignorance can provide. He belly flops with a shriek, splashes everywhere and declares that he's clean now. You nod solemnly. He is not. Others arrive. A woman with a baby slung over one hip, already muttering that someone better not pee in the water again. An elder, moving slowly, her spine a question mark and her eyes as sharp as ever. Another man who immediately dunks himself and re-emerges with a dramatic snort, like a walrus performing a ritual. This is your bath time, a communal event, everyone within eyeshot of everyone else. You try not to make eye contact. You fail. Someone jokes about your backside resembling a saber-tooth with mange. You respond with a rock tossed casually in their direction. This is considered friendly banter. You rinse the last of the grime from behind your knees. You rub your feet against stones, trying to dislodge weeks of cave floor residue. You find a leech. You name it Gerald. You remove it. It resists. You win. The cold never leaves. It seeps into your joints, lodges behind your ribs, sets up camp in your spine. You shiver so hard your teeth clack, but you stay in a bit longer, because the river is more than just water. It's a place of transition, from stink to semi-clean, from sleep to alertness, from beast to something closer to human. Finally you wade out. You step onto the muddy bank, water streaming down your legs, your breath puffing in clouds. You grab your fur and shake it out. It is not warm. It is not dry. It is, however, slightly less damp than you. You wrap yourself up and trudge back toward the cave. You leave wet footprints in the dirt, your skin tingling, your limbs still trembling. But there's a clarity to you now, a lightness, a sense that for one brief moment you're slightly less disgusting than usual. You pass a bush on the way and pause to scratch your ear with a twig. Old habits. The bush rustles. You freeze. A lizard darts out. You nod respectfully. It returns the nod. Probably. Back at the cave, the fire greets you with smoke and warmth. The smell of charred roots and bubbling soup fills the air. Children squabble. Someone sings badly in the background. Your mate is back, empty-handed, but swearing he almost had it this time. You don't ask what it was. You've learned not to. You sit by the fire. You dry off. You feel new. Not clean, never truly clean, but renewed. Ready for the next challenge, which, judging by the way your toddler is trying to poke a beetle into someone's stew, is coming very soon. This is Paleolithic hygiene, cold, communal, awkward, but necessary. And as the wind picks up again, as the smoke curls around your damp hair, as the child begins screaming because the beetle has betrayed him, you lean back and think. Tomorrow maybe you'll just rub on some ashes and call it a day. You thought hunting was hard. You thought foraging was exhausting. You thought starting a fire in a windstorm with 2 damp sticks was the limit of human suffering. Then you had children, and everything changed. Because nothing, absolutely nothing in the ancient world is more exhausting, confusing, or emotionally volatile than being a prehistoric parent. You don't just raise children. You attempt to civilize small, irrational, rock-licking tornadoes armed with sharp bones, no impulse control, and a death wish. Right now, you're sitting cross-legged by the fire, gnawing the last remnants of something that might have been meat, trying to rest your spine without looking like you're crying. One child is shrieking at the top of their lungs because someone took their favourite stick, which looks exactly like every other stick. The other is quietly smashing a beetle with a rock, while whispering something that sounds disturbingly ritualistic. A third, you think it's yours, is nowhere in sight. You sigh, deeply. The kind of sigh that shakes the soul and announces to the spirits of your ancestors that you have officially given up. Again. The problem with children in the Stone Age isn't just that they're difficult, it's that they are essential. Every one of them represents not only your legacy, but your survival. Because odds are you're not going to make it to 50. If you're lucky, you'll die warm and full. If you're not, a falling branch or spoiled mushroom might punch your ticket before the next moonrise. So you raise them anyway, despite the noise, despite the bruises, despite the very real possibility that one of them is currently eating dirt on purpose. The youngest one is still clinging to your side, half asleep and drooling something sticky down your fur wrap. The hair smells like smoke, sour milk, and secrets. You gently pry a piece of bark out of their mouth, then spot the toddler, the naked one, sprinting toward the cave entrance with a fistful of rocks and absolutely no regard for gravity. You shout. A deep guttural grunt with layers of urgency, warning, and "don't make me chase you." The toddler freezes, looks back, smiles, then keeps going. You lurch to your feet, bones cracking like dry branches, and give chase. You're not fast anymore, not with knees like these, but desperation lends strength. You catch the child just before they reach the ledge outside the cave, where the drop is steep and the consequences are very final. You scoop them up, heart pounding, breath short. They giggle, you do not. You carry them back inside, scolding gently, but they're too young for logic, too wild for reason. You set them down, and immediately they start climbing a nearby adult like a tree, fistful of hair and elbows flying. The adult grunts. You mouth an apology. They nod. It's just part of life. Parenting in the Paleolithic isn't a job. It's a full-body, full-spirit commitment. You are teacher, cook, medic, sleep aid, translator, and shield against wolves. You're expected to protect these small humans from disease, predators, starvation, and each other. And somehow you're also supposed to teach them how to grow up. Not with books, of course, or lectures. Just example, ritual, repetition. 1,000 tiny acts that one day, if you're lucky, sink into their tiny, chaotic minds and become knowledge. Wisdom passed through grunts and gestures. You teach them how to hold a stick properly, sharp side out, not toward their own face. You show them which berries are food and which ones made your cousin hallucinate that the moon was yelling at him. You demonstrate how to crouch in tall grass without making too much noise, how to squat when relieving themselves so they don't get bitten in tender places. You do this while tired, always tired, and while you teach, they test. Every limit, every rule. They throw bones. They shove each other into the fire pit. They draw with soot on the cave walls, usually depicting scenes that raise serious questions about what they've witnessed. You sometimes wonder what parenting will be like in the future. Will they still argue over sticks? Will they still bite when angry? Probably. But maybe, just maybe, there will be fewer lice. Today, your biggest challenge is getting them to sit still long enough to eat. You've prepared a soup made of boiled roots, dried meat, and whatever herbs you could forage without dying. It smells like burnt dirt and sadness, but it's hot and full of calories, which is all that matters. You pass the bowl around, each child slurping messily, spilling half of it on themselves and asking when there will be real food. You remind them gently that the last real food was a hedgehog, and they didn't like that either. One of them burps with triumph. Another tries to feed a bug to the fire. The third sits beside you and asks with terrifying sincerity whether people can eat each other. You make a mental note to keep an eye on that one. Bedtime is worse. There are no lullabies, no bedtime stories about brave heroes and magical creatures. There's just exhaustion. You pile furs into a corner, gather the children close, and lie down among them, hoping that sleep comes quickly and no one rolls into the fire again. The baby cries, the toddler kicks in their sleep, someone's elbow ends up in your mouth, and yet, despite the chaos, the filth, the screaming, the bone-deep weariness, there's a strange tenderness in it all. You look at their dirty faces half lit by firelight and you feel it. That ancient thing, the primal connection. The reason people kept doing this generation after generation, despite all logic. They are wild, but they are yours. They are loud, but they are alive. And in a world where so much is brutal and short-lived, that matters more than anything. Tomorrow they'll wake up hungry again. They'll fight over nothing. They'll get mud in their ears and bugs in their mouths and ask you 1,000 questions with no answers. And you'll keep showing up, over and over. Because you're not just surviving for yourself. You're building the future, one sticky, screaming, lovable disaster at a time. Eventually you realise that bare hands aren't enough. Yes, they're calloused. Yes, they're tougher than a mammoth's rear end and permanently stained with dirt, blood and root sap. But your hands can't pierce hide. They can't cut meat cleanly or scrape marrow from bone. They can't dig deep enough into the frozen earth. They can't carve, crack or kill efficiently. You need tools, and in your world, tools don't come from shops or stalls or a helpful man named Greg who sells hatchets out of a wagon. Number tools come from the land, from stone, from struggle, from the noble art of hitting things until something sharp happens. So today, with your fur wrap slung over your shoulder, a satchel of half-dried meat at your hip, and a vague sense of dread in your spine, you set out to do what your ancestors did before you. Make something sharp enough to survive. Your destination is a stony outcrop not far from the cave, a jagged cluster of ancient boulders baked by sun, scoured by wind, and scattered with flint nodules that might one day become knives, scrapers, or axes, if they don't become shattered fragments first. The walk is quiet, save for the distant calls of birds and the occasional hiss of wind through brittle grass. You cross a shallow stream, stepping on rocks slick with algae, and reach the outcrop just as the sun crests above the ridge. The stone before you glitters faintly, promising, silent, and extremely uninterested in cooperating. You squat and select a chunk of flint from the ground, rough, pale, and surprisingly heavy. In your other hand, you grab a rounder stone, your hammer, or, as you will come to think of it, the destroyer of thumbs. You position the flint just right. You aim. You strike. It shatters like your optimism. You stare at the broken pieces. Not one of them is sharp. One looks like a potato. Another sliced your finger while mocking you with its uselessness. You suck on your cut, glare at the flint, and start again. This is tool-making. It is not graceful. It is not satisfying. It is a prolonged series of disappointments occasionally interrupted by a triumph so small it makes you weep. You try again. You learn to angle the hammerstone, to strike with a flick of the wrist, not brute force. Too soft and nothing happens. Too hard, and the whole piece explodes in a tantrum of flying shards. Your hands bleed. Your thighs ache. You curse under your breath in prehistoric syllables that mean sharp, please, and why me. After several tries you manage a flake, a thin sliver of stone with one clean edge, and a bite sharp enough to draw blood just by looking at it wrong. You hold it up, eyes wide. This question mark. This is something. A cutting edge. The difference between struggling with sinew and slicing clean through hide. You cradle it like it's holy, because in your world it kind of is. Over the next few hours you repeat the process. Flint, strike, split, shape, fail, begin again. You learn to hold the core with your knee, to brace your elbow against your thigh. You stop flinching every time a shard grazes your wrist. By mid-afternoon, you've created a modest collection. A sharp-edge flake perfect for gutting rabbits, a broader piece that could be hafted to a stick for a spear, and a strange curved shard you plan to use for scraping hides. You also have several new cuts, a bruised thumb, and a growing suspicion that rocks enjoy watching you suffer. But you're not done. Tools are only tools if you can use them. You select a thick stick, seasoned, straight, and vaguely spear-shaped. You wrap sinew around one of the stone points and begin lashing it to the wood. The sinew is sticky and strong, stripped from an animal days ago and soaked just long enough to smell questionable, but tie well. You knot it tightly, then smear the join with resin. Pine sap boiled until it's sticky enough to bond but not so runny that it drips into your lap again. The result is something. A crude spear. Not elegant, not balanced, but real. Yours. You heft it. Feel its weight. Picture it flying through the air and thudding into the flank of something large and stupid. A deer, a boar, a rival, if negotiations go poorly. You smile. Just a little. Back at the cave, you test your new scraping tool on an old hide. It works. Sort of. The edge is sharp enough to strip hair, not sharp enough to avoid catching. You adjust your grip, scrape again, and listen to the satisfying rasp of progress. Someone watches you. A child. Eyes wide, expression caught between awe and confusion. You hand them a broken flake, show them how to grip it. They grin, then immediately cut their thumb. You nod solemnly, a rite of passage. That night, you sit by the fire with your tools laid beside you, primitive, imperfect, but powerful. You watch others pass them around, inspect the edge, nod in approval. Your mate lifts the spear, makes a face like it's too heavy, and then pretends he could have made a better one. You ignore him. Because you did this. With your hands, your blood, your persistence. You made something from nothing. And now, when danger comes, when food runs low or predators prowl, you won't face it empty-handed. You feel the weight of your tools, the responsibility, the skill passed down in muscle memory and chipped stone. You are a maker, a survivor, a bruised, tired, occasionally bleeding craftsman in a world that respects only results. And as the firelight dances across the edge of your new blade, you understand something deep and wordless. In this life, sharpness is everything. You hear him before you see him. A low grunt, a shuffle of heavy feet dragging over stones, the sound of a stick clacking against rocks for dramatic effect. Then, there he is, standing tall in the cave entrance, silhouette outlined by fading daylight, fur cloak draped over one shoulder like he just conquered a glacier. Your mate. He's returned from hunting. He does this a lot. Announces with grave purpose that he is heading out to provide, that he will bring back meat, glory, and something about the ancestors. Then he disappears for hours, sometimes an entire day, and reappears with nothing but vague stories, half a rabbit bone and twigs in his hair. You've never seen him successfully catch anything. Not once. You've seen him chase things, shout at them, trip over logs in pursuit of them. But the only consistent thing he's ever dragged home is his own wounded pride. Now, as he lumbers into the cave like a man returning from war, you brace yourself for the speech. It always begins the same way, with a sigh. He lets out a heavy breath, loud enough to suggest he carried a mammoth on his back, and drops onto the nearest fur like he's just walked across the entire continent. He doesn't look at you yet. That comes later, when he needs validation. You keep scraping the hide in your lap, stone blade in hand, pretending not to notice the dramatic flop. You count to 5. Right on cue, he speaks. Almost got it, he says, voice rough and noble, like someone who once saw a lion from a distance and thinks it makes him a lion. Big one too, massive tusks. We tracked it through the valley, but it caught our scent. Smart beast, very cunning. You don't respond. Not yet. This is part of the ritual. The monologue must complete itself. Had it cornered for a moment, he continues, gesturing vaguely with his hands. But the wind shifted. It bolted. Fast. Surprisingly fast for its size. But next time... Here it comes. Next time, it won't be so lucky. You finally look at him. He's got a smear of dirt on his forehead, an old leaf tangled in his beard, and what looks suspiciously like berry juice on his chin. You resist the urge to ask whether the mammoth fought back with raspberries. Instead, you raise an eyebrow, slowly, deliberately. A universal expression passed down since before language that means, did you seriously just waste an entire day again while I kept the fire alive, fed your offspring, cleaned your lice-ridden tunic, and invented the goddamn spear? He shrugs, then smiles. The charming kind. The kind that worked when you were younger and more forgiving. The kind that has lost some of its magic after years of watching him nap through rainstorms. You sigh, loudly. Because sighs, in your relationship, are both punctuation and communication. To his credit, or perhaps his luck, your mate isn't entirely useless. He's strong. He can carry heavy things. He knows how to start a fire, though he'll pretend he forgot whenever you're around. He tells stories that entertain the children and elders alike, and when predators come too close to the cave, he's the first to grab a burning log and roar into the night like a drunk bear. But most of the time, he just disappears, claims he's out scouting, comes back smelling like mushrooms and with twigs braided into his hair like some kind of woodland nymph who's had a rough week. You've stopped asking what he's actually doing out there. You don't want to know. He lies back, stretching like he's done something to deserve rest, and scratches his chest loudly. One of the children climbs onto him, immediately poking his nose. He grunts, lifts them like a log, and sets them aside with gentle ease. Then slowly, he turns to you. You okay? He asks. It's not the worst question, but it's 4 hours too late and 12 tasks short. You grunt. That's all he gets. He takes the hint. Kind of. Rolls onto his side, muttering something about needing to sharpen his spear. You glance over. The spear hasn't been used in weeks. It's blunted at the tip and wrapped in sinew you tied last month. Still, he holds it like it means something. You remember the early days, before children, before shared furs and shared fleas, when he chased deer just to impress you, even if he didn't catch them, when he carved you a necklace out of bone, your first real gift, when he stayed up all night once feeding the fire while you slept. He still has that charm, buried somewhere under the layers of laziness and half-finished chores. He still kisses you on the forehead sometimes when no one's looking. Still pulls you close at night when the wind howls outside the cave. But gods, does he test your patience. You hand him the hide. Scrape, you grunt. He blinks, looks at the tool, looks at you. Then slowly he nods. Of course, he says, suddenly noble again. Happy to help. You watch him awkwardly grip the scraper, angle it wrong, and begin flaking hair in the completely opposite direction. You don't correct him, you just let him do it. At least he's trying, or pretending to, which is something. Later that evening, as the fire crackles and the children settle and the cave grows dim and heavy with sleep, he shifts beside you, wraps an arm around your shoulders. You let him. His body is warm, solid, familiar. Next time, he whispers, I'll bring something back. Real food, a bird, or a deer. Maybe a fish. You grunt again, but this one is softer, almost affectionate, because you know he won't. But maybe, just maybe, you'll let him keep trying. There's no such thing as alone time. Not here. Not ever. In the Paleolithic world, privacy is a myth whispered in dreams. Your entire life, your thoughts, your failures, your grunts, your bodily functions, all of it unfolds in full view of other people. Because you don't live in a house, you don't even live in a hut. You live in a cave, and you share it with everyone. You'd think by now you'd be used to it, that you'd have adjusted to the endless proximity of other humans, your kin, your clan, your questionable neighbours who may or may not still believe sneezing is caused by tiny angry spirits. But every day, every single day, someone tests the limits of your patience by being too loud, too close, or just too present. Right now, you're trying to prepare a meal, something edible, something hot, something to distract the children long enough that you might finish a thought. You're crouched by the fire, turning a piece of charred root with a stick, when a pair of muddy feet stumbles directly into your cooking stones. It's Grick. Grick is not malicious. He's just oblivious and enormous. His idea of a light step could level a sapling, and now your hot stones have shifted, your pot is tilted, and your soup, which was finely thickening, sloshes dangerously close to the edge. You glare up at him. He offers you a gummy, apologetic smile and says, "Food smell good." You grunt back something that roughly translates to "die in a hole," but less poetic. This is the problem with communal living. You're not just coexisting, you're co-surviving, sharing air, fire and space with a dozen other people who cough loudly, snore like dying beasts, argue about whose turn it is to fetch water, and treat your limited personal items like they belong to everyone, which according to them they do. You carve a piece of meat carefully, your last scrap of dried squirrel, and set it aside. The moment your back turns, it's gone. Vanished. You look around. No one makes eye contact, not even the children, who suddenly seem very, very invested in pretending to sleep. You glance across the cave. In the dim firelight you see Uber, the self-proclaimed cave artist, hunched over the wall, smearing ochre with a chewed stick. He's painting again. That wouldn't be a problem, except he's painting directly over the symbol you marked yesterday. Your symbol. The one that means, "This spot is mine. Please don't sit on my furs or fart in my sleep space." You stand, walk over, point at the wall, then point at your chest. Uber blinks, then smiles dreamily and says, "It's not a spot, it's an expression." You consider hitting him with a rock, but you don't, because this is cave diplomacy, and if you go around bonking everyone who irritates you, you'll be exiled. Or worse, they'll make you sleep near Varn. Varn is the snorer. You've tried everything. Nudging him, kicking him, placing small pebbles on his face to make him self-correct. Nothing works. Every night, without fail, he produces a sound that can only be described as a mammoth giving birth to a volcano. Last winter, a cave bat fell from the ceiling during one of his midnight roars. You were secretly impressed. There's also Tila, who's constantly borrowing your tools and returning them worse than before, and Boar, who thinks every group meeting is an opportunity to retell the same hunting story for the 7th time, with extra details added each go-around. Last time it involved riding a saber-toothed cat. No one believes him, but no one interrupts. Because interrupting Boar means Boar starts over. You settle back into your corner, tucking your furs tightly under your hips. It's slightly warmer here. Slightly. Someone's feet are dangerously close to your bowl, but you give them a look that reminds them of the time you threatened to throw dung during a disagreement over firewood. They move. Across the fire, 2 elders are arguing in slow, deliberate tones about whether it's better to store dried meat in a basket or a pouch. The answer is neither, because no one ever stores anything properly. They leave it near the cave mouth where the dogs or the wind or the universe can take it. Beside you, a baby starts to cry. You rock it gently, though it's not yours. You stopped asking whose child is whose a long time ago. In this tribe, children are everyone's responsibility and no one's fault. The fire sputters as someone throws in wet wood. You cough. Everyone coughs. The cave fills with smoke. Someone laughs. You step outside for a moment just to breathe air that hasn't passed through 12 sets of lungs. The night is cold and sharp, but the sky is clear. Stars wheel above you like pinholes in a mammoth hide ceiling. You inhale deeply, then you hear shouting inside. You duck back in. Turns out someone sat on someone else's fur pile, which, unbeknownst to the sitter, was also doubling as a drying rack for intestines. The situation is rapidly deteriorating into a shoving match. You break it up with a shout. Everyone grunts in agreement that yes, space is limited, and yes, people should mark their drying intestines more clearly. For a moment, peace. You return to your spot, now slightly shifted due to the scuffle, and lie down. The warmth of the fire is comforting. The sound of breathing, snoring, muttering, dreaming, coughing. It's chaotic, yes, but also familiar, human. Because despite the bickering, the noise, the smells, and the close quarters, there's something anchoring about it all. These people annoy you daily, but they also protect you when predators circle. They help gather food. They sing when a child is born. They mourn when someone dies. They are your chaos, your mess, your tribe. You lie back, listening to Varn's snores pick up again, now harmonised by Grick's wheezing and Uber humming to himself, while painting expressions over your wall symbols. You let your eyes close. Because here, in this shared cave of flawed, loud, unpredictable people, you are never truly alone. And somehow, that's the most peaceful thing of all. You thought you left drama behind when you left the river this morning. You thought, perhaps foolishly, that a life of spears and soot would be too busy for politics. That when you spent your days dodging predators and your nights swatting fleas, there wouldn't be energy left for pride, envy, or passive-aggressive grunting. You were wrong. Your tribe doesn't have kings. It doesn't have rulers, chiefs, or engraved thrones. It has something far more unpredictable. Status. Invisible. Omnipresent. Slippery as mud. And it governs everything. Right now, you're watching it unfold from your usual spot near the fire, a chunk of half-dried meat in your hand, your children smearing charcoal on each other's faces in what they claim is war paint. Across the cave, two of the tribe's adult males, Brog and Irax, are arguing, not shouting. That would be simple. No, they're arguing the way cavemen do, loudly scratching themselves, repositioning their legs, and telling pointed stories about hunting trips that may or may not have happened. Brog begins. Remember the lizard last moon? Big one. Scales like bark. I brought it down myself. Alone. Irax grunts. Funny. I remember helping. Thought it was our kill. Brog's eyes narrow. Irax crosses his arms. Grick, who is chewing bark nearby, makes a noise that could be interpreted as support or indigestion. It's hard to tell with Grick. You chew your meat slowly. This will not end with fists. Not yet. This is a performance. The real fight is over reputation, not blood. In your tribe, status isn't about wealth. There's no such thing. It's not about who has the biggest cave or the cleanest loincloth. It's about who contributes, who commands respect, and who can tell the best story without being challenged into exile. Food is currency. Strength is a close second. But third, and perhaps most insidious, is narrative control. If you say you fought off a hyena barehanded and no one calls you a liar, congratulations. You're now the hyena slayer. If someone saw you screaming and running from a rabbit, well, good luck shaking the name Rabbit Feet. Right now, Brog and Irax are in a subtle war for Top Hunter. There's no title, no crown. But if Brog wins this exchange, he'll eat first tomorrow. He'll be consulted on migration routes. He'll be asked to bless a newborn with his hunter's strength, which basically means tapping the baby with a rock and not dropping it. You remember when you had little status, back before the third child, before your firewood stash got stolen 3 days in a row, before your mate forgot to credit you for inventing the new stew-stirring method that actually reduced the number of accidental burns. Your voice carried weight once. You could walk through the cave without being asked if you were still tired all the time. Now, you fight for recognition like everyone else. Tribal politics are a constant balancing act. Speak too much, and you're called a loudmouth. Say too little, and you're ignored. Contribute often, and you're expected to do more. Contribute once, and people act like you invented survival. Everything is about perception, and perception, in this cave, spreads faster than fire on a dry fir pile. You once watched a woman lose status overnight because her meat stash went mouldy. Not because she did anything wrong, but because she was blamed for bringing the curse of rot. From respected elder to bad smell woman in a single sunset. The worst part? She started believing it. Power here is fragile, fluid, and often completely disconnected from facts. Take Tharn, the current wise one. He's missing a few fingers, possibly from a spear accident, possibly from sticking them into a fire to test the gods. No one knows. He tells long, confusing stories that always end with, "And that's why we never eat cold snails." Everyone nods like it means something. He hasn't hunted in years, can't start a fire, and once mistook a painted mammoth for a real one. But he speaks slowly, wears a bird skull, and doesn't blink much. So he's respected. You look around and take stock of the hierarchy in motion. Brog is asserting dominance with volume. Erax is countering with posture. Tila, the gatherer who once returned with an entire basket of edible mushrooms, watches with narrowed eyes, probably planning her next strategic contribution. The elders, half asleep, will eventually grunt in one direction or another, and that will seal the winner. This is how decisions are made. Want to change sleeping spots? Better not piss off whoever's been hoarding extra pelts. Want to suggest moving camp closer to the river? Make sure the loudest hunter didn't just get stung by something and blame the river gods. Want someone to stop drawing genitals on the cave wall? You'd better have a higher status than they do, or a sharper rock. It's exhausting, but necessary. Because without these unspoken rules, these constantly shifting alliances and cave council grunts, chaos reigns. Even a group this small needs structure, and structure, in the absence of laws, comes from dominance, deference, and very loud storytelling. Later that night, the argument ends without a conclusion. Erax lets Brog take the final word. Something about how his spear was forged from sky bones, and the rest of the cave nods like that makes sense. Brog passes around a piece of dried meat and shares it with Grick, who laughs loudly, securing Brog's temporary rise in influence. You sit in silence, watching, thinking. Your own status may be low right now, but you're not out. You know how to climb, not through force, not through grand claims, but through steady contributions, quiet cleverness. Maybe tomorrow you'll accidentally let someone overhear that you saw bear tracks near the trail. Or maybe you'll make a new type of cord for carrying water that just so happens to impress the elders. Or maybe you'll wait, let the others burn out, let Brog get too cocky, let Erax trip over his own ego. Because in the end, the Paleolithic social ladder isn't a ladder at all, it's a pit. People crawl in and out of it constantly, covered in smoke, soot, and the opinions of others. And you're still standing. It starts with a sound. Not a loud one, no roar, no scream, no thunder of paws across stone, just a faint crunch, a shift of weight, a branch that moves when no wind blows. You freeze, every muscle tenses, your ears strain, your breath stills, and your stomach, already empty, tightens into a knot of instinct. Out here, beyond the glow of the fire, the world belongs to shadows, and the shadows are hungry. You didn't come out here for danger, you came for bark, for kindling, maybe for a handful of dry moss to help relight the fire tomorrow. But now, crouched near a thicket with your stick in hand and your back to an open field, you feel it, that ancient pulse beating in the base of your skull, whispering what your ancestors once shouted. You're not alone. You glance left, right, slowly. You see nothing, just trees and twilight. But your body disagrees. Your body has been carved by millennia of survival, and it doesn't need confirmation. It already knows. Something is watching you. You grip your stick tighter. Useless. It's not even sharpened. You never intended to fight today. You didn't bring your good spear. That's back at the cave, probably under your mate, who is sleeping as if the world never had teeth. You consider running, but running means sound. Sound means interest. Interest means pursuit. So you wait. It's easy to forget when you're focused on finding berries or arguing over who stole your scraping stone, that you live in a food chain. You, upright and clever and capable of making fire, are not at the top of it. Not even close. You know the predators that roam this valley. Saber-toothed cats with fangs longer than your forearm. Packs of dire wolves with eyes that glow like coals and patience longer than night. Bears. Not the lazy kind that rummage in berries, but the ones that charge when challenged or bored, or just because they can. You've seen what they leave behind. The shredded bones, the blood-stained grass, the trail of drag marks leading into the underbrush. You know the smell of something being hunted. You've smelled it on others. You've smelled it on yourself. Tonight it lingers in the air, the rustling stops. That's worse. Movement is predictable. Stillness is strategy. Whatever it is, it's waiting now. Watching. Calculating. Trying to decide whether you're worth the effort, or if there's something easier back toward the river. You start backing away. Slowly. You move through the underbrush with deliberate steps, trying not to crack twigs or shuffle leaves. Every inch is a gamble. Every footstep a roll of the dice. And then finally you see it. Eyes. 2 yellow points reflecting the faintest sliver of moonlight. They hover just above the grass, still, steady, wide apart. Whatever owns those eyes is large. Very large. It doesn't move, neither do you. This is the most dangerous moment. Prehistoric life is filled with negotiations over food, fire, space. But this negotiation, it's pure silence. You stare. It stares. You hope, deep in your gut, that you don't smell too delicious, that your nervous sweat doesn't register as weakness, that the beast isn't already hungry enough to stop caring. Then slowly the eyes blink. The shape behind them shifts, and then, like smoke in wind, it turns away, slips into the trees. Gone. You stay frozen for 3 full breaths, then 3 more. Only then do you dare exhale. You don't feel victorious. You feel spared. There's no glory in surviving, only relief. You retreat, faster now, not running, but close. Every step back toward the cave feels lighter, though your limbs shake and your chest burns. You pass through the ferns, across the stream, around the rock with a strange moss that looks like a face. The firelight comes into view, and with it, the faint hum of the tribe. Laughter, chewing, grunts of irritation, snoring, the soundtrack of your fragile civilization. You step into the light. Someone glances up. They see your face, pale, drawn, eyes wide. They grunt in your direction. A question. You shake your head, shrug. Just wind, you say. Nothing big. Because you don't want to talk about it. Not tonight. They nod and return to their meal. You take your place near the fire, crouch, and rub your hands together for warmth. Your mate hands you a stick with something vaguely meat-like on the end. You chew. You don't taste it. Your heart is still pounding. Because out there in the dark, something chose not to eat you. That's the only reason you're still here. Not strength, not skill, just luck. And maybe, the creature had already eaten. The truth is, being human means being prey. Not always, but often enough. You spend so much time pretending otherwise, sharpening tools, building fires, shouting about dominance, but deep down, you know, you feel it in your bones, in your dreams, in your hesitations. You are meat, walking meat with thoughts and opposable thumbs, and the world does not care. You glance over at your children asleep now in a pile of limbs and furs. You move closer, placing your body between them and the entrance to the cave. Your mate stirs beside you, pulling a hide tighter over his shoulders. Outside, the forest continues to breathe, and somewhere, not far off, something else is watching another fire. Maybe it's hungry, maybe not, but tomorrow it might be your turn again. So you close your eyes, you sleep, lightly, and you hope the shadows stay patient for one more night. It's not even light out yet. The fire is barely glowing, the cave still thick with breath and snores, when a call echoes through the stone. Low, sharp, urgent. Not a scream, not a panic, just a sound that means now. Someone shakes your shoulder. You grunt, roll over, and see Brog already standing in the firelight, spear in hand, jaw set like he's about to wrestle the gods. Hunting day. You groan. Not because you're lazy, not because you're scared, but because you know exactly what's coming. Hours of walking, bruises in places you forgot had nerves, and the distinct chance of coming back with nothing but a pulled muscle and a colourful excuse. Still, you rise. You grab your spear, the good one. The haft is smooth from use, and the flint point is chipped just right. An edge sharp enough to slice, yet dull enough not to snap on the first rock it hits. You throw on your cloak, tighten your belt, and stuff a dried meat strip in your mouth for breakfast. It tastes like old leather dipped in sadness, but it will do. Outside, the world is dark and quiet, wrapped in fog. You can't see the tops of the trees, just the pale glow of the moon and the faint movement of your fellow hunters. Brog, Arax, Tila, and that kid with one eyebrow who keeps tagging along despite being more liability than asset. You nod at them. They nod back. No one speaks. There's no pep talk. Just grunts and the soft thunk of spear butts against dirt. You head north, toward the woods where the deer sometimes gather, or the boars, or once a very angry badger that chased you for 2 days. The first hour is fine, quiet, cold. Your breath fogs in front of your face. The world smells of wet leaves, old mud, and that bitter edge of something recently dead. You walk single file. Brog leads, because he's loudest, not because he's best. Erax follows, probably plotting how to outdo him. You bring up the rear, half watching for danger, half wishing you were back at the fire with your least disappointing child. Eventually the tracks appear. Small, pressed into the mud. Deer. A group. Fresh. You crouch, touch the print, sniff the air like it might speak. It smells like movement, like breakfast. Your stomach growls in agreement. The pace quickens. You follow the trail through tangled roots and low branches, ducking, weaving, stepping around patches of mushrooms that may or may not melt your liver. The tracks grow clearer, the spacing wider. They were running. Spooked, maybe, or careless. Either way, your heart starts to beat a little faster. This is the part that gets romanticised. The thrill of the hunt, the wind in your hair, the sweat on your brow, the noble pursuit of nature's bounty. But the truth? It's mostly just running. Hours of it, sweating, stumbling, tripping over rocks, jamming your toe into something sharp and then pretending you're not limping so no one calls you Twigfoot for the next month. You catch glimpses, a flash of brown through the trees, a tail, a rustle of underbrush that sends every head snapping toward the sound. Brog hisses and gestures. Everyone drops low. You advance like shadows, breathless, silent, hopeful. The deer are there, 3 of them, grazing near the edge of a clearing. You freeze. Your hand tightens around your spear. Your pulse is thunder. This is it. Tila moves first, slowly. Her arm pulls back. Her fingers are sure. She's the best thrower among you, though she'd never say it. You watch the moment stretch, the calm before motion. Then she lets it fly. The spear cuts the air, fast, clean, and misses. The deer bolt. Instantly, everything explodes into motion. Brog roars and charges, because of course he does. Erax follows, more graceful but less effective. You take off behind them, feet pounding over roots, lungs screaming, heart in your throat. The world blurs. Trees whip past, branches grab at your face. You leap over a stream, land hard, keep going. Ahead, the deer vanish over a ridge. Brog slows. So do you. The kid trips, falls, cries out. Arax curses. Gone. You all stand there panting, mud on your legs, blood in your mouth from biting your tongue. No meat, no victory, just silence and the sound of your own failure. Then comes the blaming. Too soon, Brog mutters. You scared them. I scared them, Tila growls. You yelled like you were proposing marriage to a bear. They bicker. You sit on a rock and pick leaves out of your hair. The kid wipes snot on his sleeve. Erax starts talking about how, if the wind had shifted, he would have landed the perfect throw. Everyone nods, even though no one believes him. This is hunting. It's not glorious. It's not cinematic. It's sweaty, loud, frustrating. You spend all day chasing ghosts, arguing about angles, and lying to yourselves about how close you were. Sometimes you get lucky. Most of the time, you go home empty-handed and explain how the beast escaped through divine intervention. Eventually you turn back. The walk home is slower, quieter. Everyone is thinking about how to spin this when they return to the cave. We tracked it for hours. It was massive. We let it go, out of respect. The usual. Back near camp you spot something in the distance. Movement. Not deer, a rabbit. Small, fast, barely visible in the underbrush. You react before you think. You raise your spear, hurl it with everything you have. Your shoulder burns, your back twists, your fingers release. The rabbit darts right. Your spear lands left. Silence. Everyone stares at the spear, then at you, then at the empty patch of dirt where the rabbit was. Good try, the kid says. You consider feeding him to a bear. You retrieve your spear, grumbling. The throw wasn't that bad, but no one will remember the good ones. Only the ones that miss. By the time you reach the cave, the fire is roaring, the children are shrieking, and someone is already pretending they invented cooking. Your group returns in silence. Someone asks if the hunt was successful. Brog steps forward, raises his arms, and says, "We live to hunt again." Which means no. You toss your spear down, your body aches, your hands are blistered, your pride is wounded, but deep down, you know this is how it goes. 10 failures for every win. Hunger is a constant companion, and luck is a fickle god with a terrible sense of humour. Still, you'll go again, because one day you won't come back empty-handed. One day the throw will land. One day your name will be whispered around the fire, not with sarcasm, but with reverence. But not today. Today you sit down, you rub your shoulder, you chew on dry bark and pretend it's mammoth. And when your mate asks how it went, you say the same thing you always do. Close. The morning air smells like optimism, which should have been your first warning. The sun rises over the ridge in that too perfect way. Golden light spilling through the trees, birds chirping like they've never seen a predator in their lives, and the breeze, suspiciously pleasant. It's the kind of morning that tricks you into believing the hunt will go well, that nature might actually cooperate, that maybe, just maybe, you'll return to the cave with meat and glory instead of shame and mud in places you don't talk about. You should have known better. You set out with your spear and a half-chewed root in your mouth, feeling good, confident, ready. Even Brog gives you an approving grunt. Tila raises her chin slightly like she expects results. You nod. You promise meat. You say out loud, "We'll be back before the second shadow." You cursed yourself right then and there, because within the first half hour everything begins to unravel. It starts with the wind, fickle thing. You're tracking something, boar maybe by the hooved prints and the faint smell of the rage, but just as you start closing in, the breeze shifts. Suddenly the air carries your scent forward like a gift to the beast. You hear a snort, then a crash through the brush, and just like that, your prey is gone. No matter, you press on. Then comes the mud. You're crossing a low gully, one that looks dry enough, just damp on the surface. You step confidently, spear ready, and immediately sink halfway up your shin into muck. Cold, sticky, thick. You lurch forward, but it sucks you in deeper. You try to yank your leg free. Your foot comes out, but your sandal doesn't. It stays behind, claimed by the earth like a tax. You hobble out, one barefoot, one furious, and Brog is already laughing. You tell him to shut it. He only laughs harder. You march on, then you sneeze. Loud, wet, unavoidable. Maybe it's the pollen, or the dust, or just the curse of being alive. But the sound echoes through the trees like a signal flare. Birds scatter. Something large rustles in the distance. And once again, the trail you were following is now empty silence. By midday your back aches. Your stomach growls with the kind of rage that only tuber soup and unmet expectations can provoke. You're sweating. You're limping. You have mud between your toes and moss stuck in your belt, and you are objectively worse off than when you left. But the universe isn't done with you yet. You see movement ahead. Finally. A deer. Slender. Graceful. Mocking. You crouch low. Move slow. Your heart thumps in your ears. This is your moment. You draw your spear and step directly into a wasp nest. There's no warning, just the crunch of your foot on brittle bark and a sudden buzz that becomes a roar. Then the pain, instant, fiery, everywhere. They come out in a cloud, tiny winged demons with stingers and a vendetta. You drop your spear. You scream. You run. You fling yourself into a stream, flailing, yelping, slapping yourself in places that haven't seen sunlight since last spring. You come up gasping, drenched, shivering, and utterly humiliated. And the deer, gone, probably laughing, if deer could laugh. You crawl out of the water, soaked, bruised, and covered in welts. Brog catches up eventually. He sees your state, opens his mouth, thinks better of it, just hands you a fistful of moss and pats your shoulder. You limp back toward camp, but nature isn't quite done. Near the ridge you hear a low growl, you freeze, Brog freezes. A shape emerges from the underbrush, too big, too fast. A bear, not the giant one, but big enough. Old scars across its shoulder, eyes that have seen worse than you. It stares. You stare. Brog slowly lifts his spear. The bear huffs, then, miraculously, turns and walks away. Not afraid, just uninterested. Even the predators don't think you're worth it today. You sigh, deeply, the kind of sigh that reaches your bones. You retrieve your discarded spear, which now has a slight bend, and make your way home, one soggy footstep at a time. When you reach the cave, no one asks how it went. They see the state of you, the limp, the welts, the expression of a person who has seen too much and achieved too little. They say nothing. You sit near the fire. Someone slides a bowl of thin soup your way. You drink it without tasting. You stare into the flames. Your mate leans over and says gently, "Good hunt." You turn, slowly, meet their eyes, and say, with all the dignity you can muster, "We survived." Because some days that's all the victory you get. No one else is going to cook. You've returned from the hunt bruised, soggy, welted, and one limp short of retirement, and yet the moment your feet touch the cave floor, someone's already asking, "What's for dinner?" As if you've been galloping through a field of herbs and fresh produce, gathering ingredients like a joyful forest spirit. You don't respond, you just grunt. That universal sound meaning, "I'm not in the mood, but if I don't do this, we'll all starve and it will somehow still be my fault. The fire is still burning, that's something." A pile of damp sticks sits nearby, a reminder that nobody else remembered to gather dry wood today. You poke at the flames, the embers hiss in protest. You poke harder. Cooking, in this world, is not about taste. It's not about presentation. It's not even about nutrition, really. It's about risk management. The goal is simple. Make food hot enough to kill the bacteria, but not hot enough to ignite the furs around the fire pit. You retrieve your ingredients, first the meat, if you can call it that. A small bundle of greyish strips, half-dried, half-mysterious, probably rabbit, possibly lizard, definitely chewy. Next, a few roots you dug up earlier, knobbly, bitter, and shaped like things you'd rather not describe aloud. A handful of mushrooms, cautiously sniffed and tested. One turned blue when cut, so you threw it away. The others only smell slightly wrong. You also have 2 tiny eggs you found nestled in some rocks, stolen from a very angry bird who dive-bombed you twice and left a scratch on your forehead. The eggs are warm in your hands, fragile, sacred, dangerous. The last time someone ate a rotten egg, they hallucinated for 2 days and tried to marry a tree. You begin prep. Your cooking tool is a cracked stone bowl, blackened from years of fire and failure. Your stirrer is a stick. Your cutting tool is a flake of flint so sharp it's more likely to cut you than anything else. Still, it works. You toss the meat into the bowl. It sizzles, sort of. More like it hisses. You don't question it. You add water. Scooped earlier from the stream and strained through a piece of fur to remove the tadpoles. You drop in the roots, which float for a moment before surrendering and sinking with a sulk. Then comes the stirring. You crouch low, turning the mixture slowly, watching the steam rise and curl around your face like the breath of a disapproving elder. The heat bites your fingers, your knees pop. Someone behind you coughs directly toward the pot. You consider throwing it at them, but supplies are short. The smell begins to build. Not bad exactly, not good either. It's a combination of scorched bark, wet fur, and something faintly metallic. You stir harder. Maybe more movement will fix it. The children hover. One picks up a stick and pokes the fire. You snap at them. They laugh and flee. The toddler returns with a beetle and offers it to you with all the pride of someone holding a golden crown. You say thank you. You put the beetle in your pouch when they're not looking. More people start gathering around. They're not helping, just watching. That's the way of the tribe. The person near the fire becomes public entertainment, especially when food is involved. You feel their eyes judging every scoop, every sprinkle of dried herb, every bubble in the pot. You toss in a few pine needles. Why? You're not sure. It looks fancy. You stir again. Then you taste. It's hot. That's good. It has texture. That's expected. It also tastes like boiled disappointment. You chew. You swallow. You pretend it's fine. You offer a spoonful to your mate. He eats it and nods like you've just given him roasted mammoth tenderloin with berry glaze. He's either supportive or afraid of you. You accept both. One of the elders approaches. You ladle some into a bark bowl, hand it over. They sniff it, taste it, grunt, then sit and start eating. You exhale. That's the highest culinary approval you'll get. Soon, everyone's eating. Slurping, chewing, not dying. And that's the goal, not dying. Because cooking in your time is more than a skill. It's a daily gamble. That root could be nutritious. Could cause stomach cramps that last 3 days and end with your cousin inventing a new bathroom dance. Those mushrooms, they might stretch the soup. Or they might turn your pupils into dinner plates and have you screaming at clouds for a week. You remember the infamous soup night, when someone misidentified a yellow tuber. 3 people passed out. 1 person forgot language. The stew glowed faintly under firelight. You buried the pot and didn't speak of it again. But tonight? Tonight's different. The pot is empty now. The scraping sounds have started. The signal that people liked it enough to complain when it's gone. You lean back, stretch your spine, and stare at the smoke curling into the stone ceiling above. Cooking is thankless. No one sings about the stew brewers. No one carves tales into cave walls about the person who figured out that boiling removes bitterness. But they should. Because without food, there is no strength, no fire, no tomorrow. And yet, when it's done, you're still the one left scrubbing the blackened bowl with wet sand and regret, while everyone else farts gently into their furs and falls asleep. You scrape, you rinse, you dry the pot on a warm rock, then you sit alone for a while. The stars are out, the fire is low, the beetle in your pouch is still twitching. You think, not for the first time, that this life is a strange one, that you've become many things: gatherer, cook, cleaner, hunter, parent, craftsman, threat assessor, amateur poisoner, food taster, fire whisperer, and no one notices unless you screw it up. But tonight, no one's retching, so maybe you did okay. Love doesn't come easy in the Paleolithic. There are no candlelit dinners, no long walks on the beach, no sweet letters tucked into furs. There is no poetry, unless you count that time someone grunted a full verse about a woman's left foot. There is no music unless you find passion in someone rhythmically banging a stick against a hollow log while trying to look seductive. And yet, somehow, it happens. Romance. Even here, in a world of cold nights, dirty hands, and constant threats of being eaten by wolves, people fall in love. Or at the very least, they form deep attachments between arguments about firewood and lice treatments. You remember how it started, not just for others, for you. Your courtship wasn't some graceful dance of elegance and wit. It was awkward. It was raw. It was, in hindsight, a chaotic blur of sweat, embarrassment, and the persistent smell of animal fat. Your mate, yes, that mate, first approached you during a hunting gathering, not to offer meat, not to compliment your fire-stoking skills, but to hand you a dead rat. a freshly killed, slightly dented rat. "This," he said, puffing out his chest like a proud gorilla with commitment issues, "is for you." You blinked. You did not smile. He blinked back, confused by your lack of swooning. Then, in a moment of sheer romantic clarity, he lifted the rat by its tail and mimed it dancing. You laughed. Hard, unexpectedly. And that somehow was the beginning. Courtship rituals among your people are varied. Some dance, awkwardly. They sway in firelight with all the grace of a wounded elk. Others grunt little songs or mimic bird calls which can either be charming or deeply unsettling depending on the tone. There are gifts, pelts, carved beads, animal bones arranged into shapes that vaguely resemble hearts or spears or intestines, depending on artistic skill. One man once gave a woman a necklace made of bird feet. She wore it. They've been together ever since. No one knows why it worked. No one asks. Physical affection is similarly unpredictable. Some hold hands briefly like it's illegal. Others wrestle. Playfully, then not so playfully, then very playfully. It's a whole progression, and you've learned to read the grunts. Sometimes it's subtle, like someone sitting slightly closer to you at the fire, sharing a piece of roasted root without being asked. Other times it's alarmingly direct, like Tila, who once tackled a man mid-meal and licked his ear as a statement of interest. He married her 2 moons later. But beneath the strange rituals and uncomfortable advances, there's something genuine. Connection. Hope. The need to be seen. Because survival is hard. Living is hard. And no one wants to do it alone. You remember the first time you really saw your mate. Not as a fire-hogging, bed-scratching, mammoth-chasing buffoon, but as someone human. He had just pulled a splinter from your foot. Not delicately, not gracefully, but efficiently. He grunted something about tough hide, and for a moment, just a moment, there was a look in his eyes. Concern, affection, maybe awe, maybe gas. Either way it stuck. You mated soon after. No ceremony, no feast. Just a night spent closer than usual, and a morning where neither of you rolled away first. That's as official as it gets. Since then it's been ups and downs. There are arguments about who moved the furs, who forgot to check for fire ants, who burned the stew. There are bad days. Days when you question everything. Days when you swear out loud that if he tells the mammoth story one more time, you're going to throw him off a cliff. But then there are other moments, like when he brings you the first piece of cooked meat, even when others are watching, or when he hands you a carved trinket, badly shaped, uneven, but clearly meant to look like a fish, because you said once that you liked the river. Or when he stays up late to keep the fire going, letting you sleep just a little longer, even if he takes all the good furs for himself. Love, here, is built from survival, from shared discomfort, from laughter in the face of cold and disaster, from knowing that if the cave collapsed tonight, you'd still grab his hand first before running. It's not perfect. It's not even functional most of the time, but it's real. You watch younger members of the tribe begin their own rituals, the shy glances, the exaggerated stories told louder than necessary, the awkward fumbling gifts, a half-burned stick, a shell with a hole, a handful of berries someone forgot to wash. You see the way they look at each other, and you smile. Because some things never change. At the edge of the firelight, someone begins a slow rhythm. Stick on stone, heartbeat steady. Another starts a low chant. People gather. It's not a celebration, not quite. Just a shared moment of sound and warmth. Your mate sits beside you. He smells like smoke and sweat and something faintly fishy. He leans against you. You let him. He says, "You look strong tonight." It's the best compliment you've gotten all week. You nudge his knee with yours. "Don't make me prove it," you grunt. He chuckles. "Too tired anyway." You both watch the flames for a while, and in the dark, with the shadows dancing across the stone walls and the stars whispering their silent approval outside the cave, you feel it. Not just warmth, not just comfort, but love. Crude, imperfect, smelly, but unmistakable. You've been bitten again. You're not sure what did it. Could have been a spider, a snake, a particularly aggressive beetle, but your leg is swelling like a rotten fruit. It's hot to the touch, throbbing with that dull, pulsing ache that tells you your body's about to do something dramatic and unhelpful. So now you're lying flat on your back near the fire, your leg elevated on a rolled-up fur, surrounded by concerned grunts and unsolicited advice. Half the tribe has gathered to inspect the lump. The other half has already decided you're probably going to die. You, on the other hand, are just hoping the medicine woman shows up before someone tries to cut the evil out with a flint shard. Eventually she arrives, Nara, old, bent, and cranky as a smoke-blind bear. She smells like roots and secrets. Her hair is full of feathers, her tunic stained with substances you try not to identify. She doesn't speak much, but when she does, everyone listens. Mostly because she once spat into someone's wound and it actually got better. You grunt a greeting. She doesn't respond, just crouches beside you and pokes your swollen leg with the end of her stick. Hard. You grunt louder. She nods, satisfied. Ancient medicine is not delicate. There is no bedside manner, no soothing voice, no gentle hands. What you get instead is a relentless barrage of poking, prodding, muttering and mystery substances rubbed into places you didn't even know were injured. Nara inspects your leg. She sniffs it, licks the swelling once, yes, licks, and then spits into the fire. Diagnosis complete. She barks a command. 2 young helpers scurry off. One returns with a bundle of herbs, the other with a dead wasp tied to a piece of twine. You don't ask. You stopped asking a long time ago. She begins by slathering your leg with a paste made of ground bark, moss, and something that smells like wet ashes and feet. It's cold, sticky, and immediately starts to itch. That means it's working. Probably. Then she adds beetle shells, crushed, for strength, or courage, or maybe just texture. She doesn't explain, she just rubs harder. You clench your teeth and try not to kick her, not because it would be rude, but because she'd definitely kick back, harder. Someone behind you starts singing, a low, rattling chant that's part healing ritual, part peer pressure. You close your eyes and breathe through the pain. Nara pulls out a sharp flake of obsidian. You freeze. This is the part you hate, because ancient surgery isn't clean, it isn't quick, it's a sharp rock, a strong grip, and the assumption that you'll scream a little but survive anyway. You brace. She makes a small incision in the swelling and hot fluid oozes out. It smells wrong. You scream, quietly, through gritted teeth, because you're not going to give these people the satisfaction of a full yell. She nods again, like this is going perfectly. Then comes the fire. She grabs a stick from the flames, lets it cool for about 3 seconds, then presses it to the cut. You feel pain in colours. You see stars behind your eyelids. You let out a sound that's not quite human. The wound hisses. Your pride deflates. Afterward, she packs the cut with dried leaves and ties it with sinew. Then she puts a feather on your forehead, grunts something about the moon's approval and walks off. You're left lying in the dirt, steaming from the leg, smelling like sap and smoke, and trying to decide whether you've been healed or cursed. The others slowly disperse. Someone pats your shoulder. Someone else takes the opportunity to steal a piece of meat from your stash. You're too weak to care. Your mate comes over and sits beside you, offers you a sip of water. You take it. It tastes like bark. Still, you nod in thanks. The pain fades slowly, replaced by a throb that's less rage and more reminder. You survived. Again. Somehow. You think back to all the other remedies you've seen over the years. The man who broke his arm falling from a tree, wrapped it in boiled leather and bones, healed crooked, but lived. The woman who swallowed too many bad berries. Nara made her drink river water mixed with crushed charcoal and frog skin. She threw up for 3 days, then got better, probably by coincidence. Then there was the child with a fever so high his skin steamed. Nara danced around him for hours. burning pine needles and shouting at the wind. He recovered. No one knows why. Because that's the truth of Paleolithic medicine. No one really knows. They try. They believe. They improvise. Some things work. Some things work because people believe they work. And some things don't work at all, but make you forget the pain long enough to let your body handle it. The line between healing and superstition is thin, and no one questions it too loudly, not unless you want beetle paste in your ears just to be safe. You shift on your furs, leg-wrapped, head-spinning, body buzzing with whatever herbs Nara smeared under your nose at the end of the ritual. You smell bark. You taste metal. You feel like you've been punched by a mammoth and hugged by a tree at the same time, but you're alive. And tomorrow, if the swelling goes down, people will say the spirits favoured you. If it doesn't, they'll say you were disrespectful to the gods. Either way, Nara wins. You fall asleep under a hide, drifting in and out of strange dreams. Wolves dancing, feathers flying, Nara cackling while riding a bear, and you smile. Because medicine may be pain, it may be nonsense. It may be rooted in superstition older than words. But somehow, it works. There are no gods carved in stone, no written prayers, no temples with doors, but there is belief. Not belief like you understand it now, strict, polished, recited by candlelight. Number. This belief is dirt-covered, bone-laced, whispered into the wind with smoke in your lungs and blood on your hands. It's messy, vague, full of contradictions, and completely necessary. Because the world you live in makes no sense. It kills without warning. It gives without reason. One day, the hunt goes well. The next, your strongest man is dragged off by something no one even saw. Fires flicker out for no reason. Water disappears. The sky growls. Your children cry at shadows they swear are watching them. And sometimes, they're right. So you believe. Not because someone told you to, but because you must. Right now, you're sitting at the edge of the fire, watching the flickering shapes on the walls dance like spirits performing their nightly shift. The tribe has gathered close, dozens of faces lit orange and gold. It's time for the moon ritual. No one remembers when it started, or why. But every time the moon reaches her highest place in the sky, round and silver and smug, you all come here. You light the fires, you draw on your skin, you chant, and you hope deep down that the moon's attention means one less person disappears before morning. You still smell of Nara's medicine, bark, moss and pain. Your leg throbs under the fur. But you are here, you showed up. That's half the magic. The ritual begins, as it always does, with humming, low, rough, off-key. It starts with one voice, then another, then a dozen. A sound more felt than heard, like stone vibrating, like ancestors clearing their throats through your bones. No words, just sound, old and aching. Uber the artist smears charcoal on your forehead, a mark, protection, identity, or maybe just decoration. No one ever explains. The older ones say the charcoal scares off spirits. The younger ones say it makes you look like a real tribe member. You think it mostly makes your nose itch. The storyteller stands. Vaughan wide eyes, half of his teeth, long arms that gesture like birds in flight. He begins a tale, not a true one, not exactly, but real enough to matter. He tells of the sky beast, the one who breathes lightning and drinks clouds. He says it lives behind the moon. He says it gets hungry every few winters and eats the loudest hunter. You look at Brog. Brog coughs quietly and adjusts his seat. You've heard this story 100 times. And yet, you still lean forward. Because it's not just about the beast. It's about why. Why the rains don't come. Why the ground cracks. Why the children cough at night. In a world that rarely explains itself, stories are the only thing that do. The story ends with a loud bark and a laugh. People clap, slap backs, toss pebbles in approval. Vaughan grins, then sits. Another rises. This time Nara. She doesn't tell stories. She speaks to the spirits. At least that's what she says. And no one dares call her a liar. She lights a bundle of dried herbs. They catch fast, coughing smoke into the air that smells like old leaves and something slightly sweet. She waves it toward each person, chanting softly, sounds that mean everything and nothing. You close your eyes, let the smoke wash over your face. It burns your nose, clears your head. She says a name, it's yours. You open your eyes. She stares at you. You freeze. Then she nods once sharply and moves on. Everyone pretends not to be impressed, but you feel it. A tingle in your spine. A quiet pride. The spirits looked at you tonight and didn't frown. The ceremony moves to the offerings. One by one, people bring items to the centre of the fire. Carved beads, feathers, animal teeth, bits of food, strange stones. You add a small piece of bark you carried all day, etched with lines you scratched while waiting for your leg to stop swelling. It means nothing, or it means everything. That's how it works. The offerings sizzle, smoke, vanish. The flames dance higher. People begin to sway. Soft movements at first. Then more. A rhythm builds. Feet tapping. Hands clapping. Bones shaking in rhythm. It's not a dance of beauty. It's survival. Gratitude. Desperation disguised as celebration. You rise too. Your leg protests, but you ignore it. You move. Slowly. Awkwardly. But in sync. Around the fire. With them. Together. You remember other rituals. The rites for birth, where a baby's first cry is met with ululations and smoke drawn around its head. The rites for death, where bones are buried in the cave wall, and the name is sung into stone. The rites for seasons, for wounds, for luck, for love, for rain, for silence. None of them are perfect. Most don't work, but they mean something. They remind you that your pain is not just yours, that your joy can echo, that someone, somewhere, human or spirit or the great mystery that lives in thunder, might be listening. You collapse back onto your fur, chest heaving, body warm. Around you others begin to rest. Some still hum, some weep softly. Some lie on their backs, staring into the smoke that dances like ghosts and gods and memories. You stare too, and you wonder, not if the spirits are real, but whether they ever laugh at you. Probably. And yet, they keep the stars where they are. They make the sun rise. They make the moon fat and round. And they, somehow, made you survive this long. You whisper a thank you to the sky, to the cave, to whoever or whatever is still listening. Then you sleep, because faith, like fire, needs tending. But sometimes it just needs rest. You could have spent the evening sharpening tools or stretching a hide. You could have checked the meat stash or foraged moss for tinder. You could have slept. Gods know you need it. But instead you're holding a chunk of charcoal in one hand and a flat stone in the other, crouched in the cold, staring at a wall inside your cave. Because something inside you is asking, no, begging to be seen. It's not logical, not useful. No one eats a drawing. No one staves off wolves with ochre. But even now, after a day of foraging, parenting, cooking, surviving, when your body screams for rest and your knuckles are scraped raw from a failed snare, you're here, in the back of the cave, smearing meaning into stone. You draw a line, it wobbles, your hand cramps, you draw another. Beside you a small pile of pigments, red ochre, yellow clay, white ash, black soot, all ground with spit and hope, mixed in shells or scooped into carved hollows of bone. Your brushes are tufts of animal hair tied to sticks, or your own fingers dipped and dabbed and dragged across rock. You don't have a plan. No one does. Some start with animals, those eternal, powerful forms. You've drawn them before. Mammoths, bison, wolves, deer. Always mid-motion, always larger than life. They're the beings you chase, worship, and fear. Drawing them is a kind of mimicry, a kind of prayer. Maybe if you paint the mammoth well enough, it'll appear in the valley tomorrow. Maybe if the bison runs true in charcoal, it won't gore your cousin again. Others draw people, stick figures sure but detailed in strange ways, one with long hair and beads, one with a scar across the chest. One holding a spear, forever poised mid-throw. One crouched beside a fire, a hand outstretched. You once saw someone paint themselves with an open mouth, like they were always mid-laugh or mid-scream. You don't know what yours is yet. You keep drawing. You remember the first time you touched the cave wall. Not as shelter, but as canvas. You were young, still short, still wide-eyed. You pressed your palm against the stone and blew pigment over it, watching your handprint bloom in reverse. The outline remained after you pulled away. It looked like a spirit, like a ghost trying to crawl through. You stared at it for hours. Since then, you've made dozens more. Handprints, animals, lines, spirals, fire shapes, sun shapes, figures with too many eyes and not enough limbs. You don't explain them to anyone. No one asks, but they come to see, always. Some laugh, some nod, some say nothing but leave offerings, small stones, feathers, food. They treat the wall like it's sacred, like it's you. Because art in this world is magic. It preserves. It remembers. It shouts when mouths go quiet. When someone dies, their mark remains. That smear of red, that crooked line of dots, that handprint near the ceiling, so high you had to stand on two others' shoulders to place it. That's two. Gone last winter. His laugh still echoes. But now so does his art. And the cave listens. Tonight you draw fire, not a symbol, not a sketch, a feeling. You use red, black, yellow. You smear, smudge, dab, scrape. You drag your fingers until the tips bleed, and you keep going. The fire is a spiral, a burst, a shape that trembles with movement. It's not literal, it's not perfect, but it burns. You sit back, look at it, let your breath return. Your child crawls up beside you. They watch. Then they dip their tiny fingers in ash and make a smudge next to yours. A line, a dot, a wild shape. You don't ask what it means. You just nod. Another child comes, then another. Soon, the wall is alive again. Because art is never just about one person. It spreads. It moves. It attaches to hearts like fire to dry grass. And once it starts, you can't stop it. Someone drums behind you, a soft rhythm. Someone else hums. A third begins carving into a bit of bone, echoing the shapes from the wall. You feel your blood slow, your thoughts settle. This is why you draw. Because you can't stop the storms or the hunger or the death. But you can mark it. You can show the gods or yourself that you were here, that you felt something, that you made meaning from the mess. Even if no one remembers your name, they'll see the fire, and maybe they'll understand. Later, after the others have wandered off, you stay behind. You light a small ember, just enough to glow on the wall. You press your palm beside your drawing, another print, another shadow. Then you blow out the flame. Darkness, silence. But behind your closed eyes, the wall still glows. You're a hunter, a parent, a cook, a firekeeper, a survivor. But tonight, you are an artist, and the cave remembers. The sun is dying again. You can feel it in your bones before you even see it. An eerie stillness that settles over the forest, like the world itself is holding its breath. Shadows stretch long and sharp across the valley. The golden light turns cold. Every bird goes silent at once. Even the insects, those ever-buzzing, ever-biting creatures, seem to vanish. This is the part of the day you hate most, not because it's the end, but because it's the beginning of something darker, something older, something that still remembers what it's like to hunt humans. You move fast, everyone does. There's no talking now, no laughter. The jokes and jabs of the afternoon have died with the sun. You nod to your mate, he nods back. That's enough. Time to prepare. First the fire, it must not go out. Not tonight. You gather dry twigs, twisted bark and fistfuls of brittle grass. You test each piece with a snap and a sniff. Wet wood is a curse. It hisses and sputters and betrays your position with smoke instead of heat. The children are already inside the cave, curled against the walls, half asleep with furs pulled up to their noses. You envy them. You don't remember the last time you slept before moonrise, or without one eye open. The cave mouth must be blocked partially. You can't seal it. That would trap smoke. But you can stack large stones, lean logs, and pull thorny branches across the lower opening. It won't stop a determined predator, but it'll slow it. Sometimes that's all you need. You grab a bone club from the pile near the entrance. The haft is smooth from years of sweaty palms. The head is stained dark with things you'd rather not name. You check its weight. Familiar, comforting, necessary. Your mate checks the perimeter, a ritual as much as a task. He circles the clearing twice, grunts once, then tosses a pebble against the firewood pile. No sound from the trees. Good. For now. Back inside, you stoke the flames again. Sparks leap upward, chasing shadows across the ceiling like ghosts made of smoke. The fire crackles and spits, alive and angry. Just how you want it. You sit beside it, legs crossed, weapon close. You do not relax, because you know what comes next. Night is not simply darkness, it's a transformation. The animals change, the rules change, you change. The same forest that offered roots and berries by day becomes a black maze of snapping twigs and glowing eyes. The same path you walked laughing is now a death trap lined with hungry things. The wind sounds different, less playful, more personal. You've seen what happens when people forget. Tora did once, said he'd only be gone a moment, just stepping out to relieve himself. He didn't take a torch, didn't tell anyone. You found his body the next morning, or rather what was left of it. So now, no one leaves the fire. Children are told bedtime stories with teeth in them, warnings disguised as fables. If you hear a whisper in the trees, close your eyes. If something calls your name from the dark, it's not your friend. If you see yellow eyes, don't run, don't breathe, pray. Not that prayer always works. You remember one winter, deep, bone-cracking cold. The firewood was low, everyone was hungry. The cave stank of smoke and fear. That was the year of the shadow beast. No one saw it clearly, just a blur, a growl, a shape too large, too fast. It took 3 people in 1 week. No prints, no blood, just gone. Nara said it was a spirit. Vaughan said it was a curse. You didn't say anything. You just kept the fire going. Tonight, you do the same. You hum softly, an old tune your mother used to sing when she still had teeth and patience. It doesn't scare the beasts away, but it makes the cave feel less like a tomb. A low rustle outside, you freeze. The flames crackle louder. You reach for the club, hold your breath. Nothing. Probably wind, or a branch settling, or dash, a long howl. Not close, but not far enough either. Your mate's eyes meet yours. He doesn't move, doesn't blink. You both listen. Then, silence again. That's worse. Wolves are smart. They test, probe, wait for weakness. You've heard them circle for hours before striking. You've seen them drag prey straight from a sleeping pile of furs. You check the children, all asleep. Good. You toss another log onto the fire. Sparks leap like desperate prayers. The heat roars. You glare at the darkness like it insulted your ancestors. You will not die tonight. Eventually the fire settles into a steady burn. The cave warms. The children mumble in their dreams. Your mate nods off, chin against his chest. You stay awake. Someone has to. You think about the strange things you've heard in the night over the years. Chittering that didn't sound like any bird. Footsteps that stopped just beyond sight. Breathing where no one was sleeping. Once, a scream that echoed from every direction and left the walls vibrating. You don't believe in ghosts, but you don't not believe either. The cave protects. Sometimes. But only if you respect it. That means watching the fire, listening to the silence, remembering that you are prey as much as predator, that you're not the top of the food chain, you're just the cleverest snack. Your eyes blur, head nods, you force it back up. The fire is still strong for now, and that's enough. You'll sleep when the sun returns, when birds sing again, when the wind stops whispering and starts laughing. Until then, You sit, still, alert. Because in this world, nightfall isn't bedtime, it's battle. You wake to birdsong. Not the frantic screech of scavengers or the ominous silence before a storm, but real song. Light, fluttering, unconcerned. The kind of sound that doesn't belong to hunters or hunger, but to something different. You blink against the light. It's brighter than usual. Softer too. The cave's entrance glows with the early morning mist, and the fire, for once, is still smouldering peacefully, without having been kicked, cursed, or completely forgotten. You sit up slowly. Your joints creak. Your back aches. Your leg, the one that Nara treated, the one that nearly killed you, still throbs faintly, but it's healing. The scar is ugly, but you're alive. Today feels different. It's hard to explain. The air smells the same. Dirt and smoke and fur and sweat. The people are the same. Your mate still snores like a mammoth with seasonal congestion. Your children are still tangled in furs and limbs, a snoring puzzle you'll never solve. But something is shifting. Beneath your feet, behind your thoughts, change. You felt hints of it before. When someone painted a deer on the wall so perfectly it looked like it would run right off the stone. When a stranger arrived from a distant tribe and showed your people how to shape a spearhead with shocking precision. When Nara declared she had a vision that the rivers themselves would soon walk. You didn't understand that one. Still don't. But you felt it. Even now, as you rise and step out into the morning air, you feel it in the way the trees bend, in the new shoots sprouting from the blackened earth of a past fire, in the strange new bird call you've never heard before. A new season is coming, and not just in weather. You meet with the others near the river. The hunters are talking in hushed tones. They found something upriver, a small group, not hostile, not weak either, with tools unlike yours. They cook their food on flat stones. They wear polished beads around their necks, not for spirits, but for beauty. They speak a different tongue, but their laughter sounds the same. Later you gather to watch them approach, carefully, slowly, no weapons raised, no teeth bared. You stand beside your mate, your children clinging to your legs, your club resting on your shoulder, just in case. They're strange, taller, darker. One wears something that looks like woven grass. Another has a necklace of smooth stones, polished and drilled. The woman in front holds up both hands, empty, open. You do the same, and just like that the silence breaks. They gesture, point, offer something wrapped in bark, smoked meat. You accept, offer dried berries in return. There's no ceremony, no language yet, just the first sparks of understanding. Later by the fire, one of them hums a song you've never heard. You hum yours in return. The rhythms clash, then settle, then blend. The children play together before they understand each other. They don't need to. Laughter is its own dialect. You listen, you watch. This isn't just a new day. This is the beginning of something else entirely. You won't live to see what it becomes. You know that. But maybe your children will. Maybe they'll learn to weave like the strangers. Maybe they'll carve beads, build walls, plant seeds. Maybe one day they'll live in something that isn't a cave. Maybe they'll write things down. Maybe your story will be remembered. Or maybe not. Maybe the wind will take it, scatter it like ash and pollen and myth. But tonight, as the fires burn low and strangers sleep peacefully beside your own people, you feel something close to peace. You've survived another day, and something in you, a deep quiet thing older than words, says that maybe your people will survive all the days to come too, and that is enough. You settle down on your usual fur, your back to the wall, your eyes on the embers. One child presses their foot against your ribs. Another chews quietly on something they definitely weren't supposed to eat. You sigh. You smile. It's night again. But not like before. This night doesn't feel like danger. It feels like a page turning, like the last breath of a long story, and the first whisper of the next. And if you're still awake, thank you for walking this ancient path with us, for sitting by the fire, for crouching in the dark, for feeling the cold earth beneath your feet. If your eyes are heavy now, let them close. You've lived the day as a caveman. Every bruise, every laugh, every bite, every ember. And now, the cave is quiet. The danger has passed, and the world is soft again. If you found peace in this story, feel free to subscribe for more sleepy journeys through history. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always beautiful to see our tribe growing around the world. Until next time, rest well, and remember, you survived. Good night.